And welcome to the Rotoworld Basketball Show. We have a jam-packed episode today, recapping, updating where we are in the in-season tournament, plus updates on Joel Embiid, Kristaps Porzingis, Andrew Wiggins, and who we're eyeing up on the waiver wire, buy low, sell high spots. It's Vaughn Dalzell and Raphielle Johnson of NBC Sports, along with Dan Titus of Yahoo Sports. And that's where I'm going to start today, because Dan, I want to know, one, how's your week been, my guy? And two, how did you enjoy the in-season tournament action the past 2 days? Because I loved it.
It's been a good week, and yeah, man, the in-season tournament's been a success. I don't see why anyone could hate on this. Like, I see stars diving on the floor. Tyrese Halliburton gave us his first triple-double of his career. And I think it's a great underdog story, right? Like, I mean, for the Pacers to take down the Boston Celtics and have a chance at this NBA Cup, like, I think this is exactly what fantasy basketball managers want to see. And then also, obviously fans of basketball in general. So I can't be mad at it, man. I'm having fun.
You knew we couldn't make it 2 minutes throughout the show without mentioning Tyrese Halliburton. That dude lit it up. Love seeing what his parents and their reactions after he got that triple-double. That was awesome to see. Raphielle, may not be as gloomy for you because we thought the Knicks could win the in-season tournament. Well, the Bucks really showed up and showed out in that game. But it was a very fun effort from the Knicks' 3 stars. What did you think about the games in general?
Well, 3 of the games were fun, but that's yeah, I think Dan hit on it. You've got an extra level of competitiveness. You put 500 large on the line, a lot of people are going to be more competitive as it is, and then you've got some of the elite competitors in their particular sport out there. So it's been fun to watch things kind of ramp up a bit. It's quarterfinal games. I'm interested to see how things shake out with that first semifinal. I think they start at like 2 p.m. local time out in Vegas. I'm sure they won't have an issue getting a crowd there, but then you're like people just leaving work to get home, in terms of TV viewers. Like, how are those numbers going to look? But that's not really my concern since I don't work in the TV industry, so I don't really care. I'm just, kind of putting it out there. It's just interesting timing. I thought it would be like a straight up doubleheader instead of kind of like a day night, I guess you would say. But other than that, the court looks interesting. The new court they've got, someone joked they're kind of trolling the Clippers with it, with the color design. But if anything, it looks really slick. That's something we talked about last week. Hopefully there are no soft tissue injuries these next 2 days, but we'll see.
Do you think any of that scheduling is because of Thursday night football? Like, can they not have 2 primetime games or something? Like, and of course, the game that we're watching is like the Steelers, and like no one's even going to be watching that game anyway.
Yeah, I didn't think about it that way, but it's like,
okay, well, why schedule a
game like football? I don't really know if the 2 sports are really going to, clash too much in terms of who wants to watch them. If you're watching that particular Thursday night football game, you're either invested as a fan or like a fantasy player or a gambler, or you're just a glutton for punishment, because that doesn't seem like
imagine going to that game too.
Who would ever do that? Only this guy, $30 tickets, sign me up for nosebleeds. Yeah. I'm going to be a part of history. We're going under. But yeah, no, the Amazon has the Thursday night football game, and I know ESPN and TNT have the 2 NBA games.
Yeah.
So maybe it did have something to do with that, but I'm not too sure. I hate that we have to stay up till 10:30 on the East Coast to see the last NBA game. But for these 2 primetime games, they got them moved up early times when people are working. But 2 great games, though, Pacers versus Bucks and Pelicans versus Lakers, just like everybody predicted. Raphielle, I'll start with you. What are you making for any streaming options for these 2 games?
I think Aaron Nesmith is someone to keep an eye on. I think his percentage dropped a bit after their win over the Celtics, just because they only have 1 more game this week that counts. But I think he's someone, he's at 16% rostered, somewhere in there, the high teens. I think he's been giving him good minutes off the bench. He played 31 minutes on Monday to starter Obi Toppin's 26. So I think there's going to be room for both of those guys to contribute from a fantasy standpoint. So he would be one guy I'd definitely be looking at in terms of a streaming option.
Nesmith's not a bad look at all. Dan, what's your opinion? Who are you looking at?
So I would go with the Lakers, mainly because I think that those guys are widely available. So you can pick up Taurean Prince, a guy that played 30 minutes, Cam Reddish. And while Jared Vanderbilt did come back and Rui Hachimura did as well, I still feel like there's an opportunity to get some sneaky, points, low end points, threes, steals, to bolster your production. I think it's really important that you brought up those 4 games on Thursday because there's no real smash ad here. It's more about getting a couple, increasing that margin of production in a couple of counting stat areas where you can get 3 assists from a guy or 2 steals or something. So when you have a loaded slate like tonight, Wednesday, was 11 games, and Friday where there's 13 games, you're not going to be playing your bench guys. So the really only other opportunity to stream this week is Thursday. So that's where you want to pick up these fringe guys that you'll probably be dropping for next week, but just to kind of get a leg up on your opponent.
Yeah, I think that's great advice too, because like you said, there's not much to work with. So you got to target a couple categories that you may be lacking in or may need to, take advantage of while you can. And there's a couple rotations that have been changing, especially in that Lakers-Pelicans game. You mentioned Jared Vanderbilt, Dan, Rui Hachimura is back as well. For the Pelicans, they got CJ, McCollum, and Trey Murphy back. So we'll start there, Raphielle. I want you to hit on because you spoke about Trey Murphy the last 2 weeks and kind of how his impact could change the New Orleans rotation. He's hit 7 out of 18 threes in his first 2 games back, 17 points per game. CJ also looking good with 20 assists in 3 games.
Yeah, good call there. They've both been really good. Obviously, where they're ranked right now, I think they're both like top 20 players. They aren't going to stay there just because, that's with a limited sample size for them. But Murphy, I'm interested to see what happens there because I think a lot of people assumed that at some point he would be the starter and Herb Jones would come off the bench. Herb shot the ball better than he did in his first 2 seasons, for one. And the man's an elite defender. Like, if you were to run down a list of the top defensive wings in the NBA, I don't think you're getting outside the top 5 without mentioning him. That's just how good he is on the ball, help side. And then the improved shooting, I think, goes a long way towards keeping him in that role. The good news for both of those guys that they're going to get the minutes to provide solid value, whether they start or come off the bench. So I really like both of them. CJ, in terms of the distribution, the way he's passed the ball lately, that's been good to see because they're still trying to figure out that whole dynamic, especially between Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson. I don't know if Zion's been as eager to sacrifice as they probably need him to be, based on recent reports and whatnot, but they're figuring these things out. They're playing good basketball. So you have either CJ or Trey Murphy. I think you're in a good spot fantasy-wise right now.
Yeah, absolutely. CJ is probably only going to get better with time, and I'm sure his assist numbers will pretty much stay consistent there. Zion didn't quite have the impact that we imagined in his previous game. But Dan, what did you think about them, specifically Herb Jones too, who was mentioned by Raph?
Yeah, I think Herb's just been phenomenal lately. 17 points in his last 3 games, shooting the ball well, but then also what you would expect from him on the defensive end, as Raph stated. And I think now it's just more of a question of like, where's the value outside of, those starters now that Trey Murphy's back and CJ McCollum's back. Jordan Hawkins didn't play on Monday.
Yeah,
and so Jose Alvarado's back in the rotation, and then Najee Marshall's now getting minutes. So I don't think that there's actually really that much fantasy appeal outside of those 6 guys that we just talked about. Jonas Valanciunas is playing decently enough. He's going to be rostered in a lot of leagues, so you're not going to drop him or anything like that. So it really is about where does Trey fit in with Herb Jones, and it seems like Willie Green is cool with keeping that defensive intensity with Herb Jones. He's playing well, so there's no reason to bench him. And I think Trey Murphy as a 6th man is scary, man. Like the length that he has, the defense, he plays very good defense too. He averaged over a steal a game last season. He's a knockdown 3-point shooter. They're just a scary team now. So I think it's great that we got to see them get healthy right for the in-season tournament because I think there's a lot of potential here if this team can stay healthy. And shout out to Brandon Ingram, who's been playing very well. As Raph was talking about, can Zion start to, be a little bit less selfish? I feel like it's more Brandon Ingram's really becoming this playmaking power forward or, point forward type of guy. So I've been really impressed just by the way he's been playing. Efficiency still struggles a little bit, but I think that this squad is really coming into form, being that 2 of their main guys were out for so long. They look good.
Yeah, that's been a big problem with the Pelicans. I feel like for the past few years, it's just been injuries in general. And then you get CJ and he gets injured right away too. But yeah, I think long-term they're okay if they stay healthy. And I do like the shout out to Brandon Ingram because ever since he's, cashed, most improved player 3 years ago now, I want to say. Yeah, he's been my guy. So I love him. And who I do also love this year has been Rui Hachimura. I was just so impressed with him in the postseason last year that I'm like now a Rui Hachimura fan. And that's not a thing that I thought I'd be saying this year. But if you're a Jared Vanderbilt fan, Raphael, you're probably pretty upset about what you got out of him the last 2 games. I mean, only 29 total minutes, 1 point, 10 rebounds, and 3 assists. So not the production you thought you'd get.
Yeah, that's true. But if you have Jared Vanderbilt, first off, I'd ask you why you held him for this long, because I didn't really, with the state of that rotation, there are just so many bodies. I don't think he's one that you can reliably count on for fantasy value. But on the flip side, you're not really adding him for points. The rebounds, the defensive stats, that's what you're looking for in a Jared Vanderbilt. If you have him, the 5 rebounds, that's adequate. But I think right now, for me personally, I'm waiting to see how that rotation shakes out, because you also have Christian Wood, Jackson Hayes. We saw get rotation minutes while guys were injured. Besides LeBron, and you're not going to be able to pick up LeBron. Obviously, there really isn't anyone that's like, that's my guy. I have to roster him right now. I think for me personally, it's to take a wait and see approach, see how things shake out in this next 1 or 2 games if they reach the final, and prepare for week 8 in terms of how to attack the Lakers rotation.
Yeah, I think one thing that you point out stands out to me was because you said Jackson Hayes getting some minutes. One guy that didn't get any minutes now because Vanderbilt being back and Hayes did was Christian Wood. He got a do not play coach's decision. So I definitely thought that was intriguing to see, and I want to see how that rotation kind of shakes out there for not really the 6, 7, 8 guys, but more, the 9th and 10th players in that Lakers rotation. Dan, your opinions on Vanderbilt, Rui, and the rest of the Lakers fantasy players?
Yeah, want no parts of that front court right now, as Raph stated. It's just like I think Darvin Ham is just really trying to figure out what he has, and they've been waiting for Jared Vanderbilt to get healthy all season long. So I think that's a bad look for Christian Wood. I think that they were probably forced to play him. They had to force that hand just because they are so down bad in terms of the front court help. But yeah, he's definitely not a must roster. I don't think anybody in that front court is a must roster except for that Thursday game. If like you have a couple of bench spots that you can fit these guys in, sure, do it. But beyond week 7, I wouldn't touch them.
If you had to pick up one or the other, Hachimura or Vanderbilt tomorrow, who are you guys picking up?
I'd probably go Vanderbilt just because I think he offers more defensively. Hachimura can shoot mid-range jumpers and hit a 3, but he doesn't really do much else. So, yeah, I'd probably lean Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So at this point, you're kind of hunting specialists in terms of particular categories. So, yeah, I think Vanderbilt would be a better option for me.
Yeah. I'll get you those stocks too, which we love to talk about here. And let's cut over to the East Coast, guys. Let's talk some Celtics and Sixers. And when I was looking at some statistics, the last 4 games that Kristaps Porzingis has been out, I was pretty surprised. Since November 24th, obviously, the Celtics lost 1 game. That was to the Pacers, but they are 3-1, beating the Hawks, Bulls, and Sixers. Number 1 rebounding percentage as a team, 6th in defensive net rating and 12th in offensive net rating. That's pretty impressive without having a guy that made a huge difference to start the season. So, Raphael, he's coming back. What are you looking for when he does come back? Is there anyone that you might be considering dropping if you have picked him up in the Boston Celtics rotation?
I think in a shallow league, maybe you entertain dropping Al Horford, but that can even be said, I'd rather hold on to him. I think Sam Hauser is the obvious answer in standard and deep leagues. 16% rostered right now. I was initially on that bandwagon of dropping him as soon as Monday's game ended, but then you hear they're not going to be, obviously, they won't be playing in the semifinals. Their game against the Knicks, it means something for the standings, but the stakes aren't there. So does Boston entertain sitting Porzingis for that game too, just to get him additional rest? I need to look up exactly when they play their first game of week 8. And it's not until Tuesday against the Cavaliers. And that's a game where you argue that he would be of just as much, if not greater importance, just because you have Evan Mobley and Jared Allen there. The Knicks have Mitchell Robinson, but he's not sharing the floor with another 7-footer like they do in Cleveland. So I think maybe the equation has changed to where you possibly hold on to Sam Hauser, but I don't think it's a requirement to hold him.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Definitely intriguing situation. We shout out Uncle Al Horford last week because he was doing his thing in a few games.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, Porzingis comes back. I'm sure his minutes are going to be cut down significantly. I mean, maybe 6 to 8 minutes per game. Dan, what's your opinion on the Celtics? Are you in the same boat as Raphael?
Yeah, I was waiting until he was going to mention Sam Hauser. And I'm of the same opinion. It's really about when Kristaps Porzingis is coming back. He was a full participant in practice on Wednesday. So I feel like he's inching closer to a return, but I think Raf's theory of, hey, why rush it back? Like, let's give him more time to rest if they don't play till Tuesday against another divisional opponent like the Cleveland Cavaliers, who, that's a pretty formidable front court there. So I think it makes sense. I think it's a good sign if you have Porzingis that he's practicing in full 5-on-5. But I would just pay attention to what the injury report says. If Porzingis is a go, I think you can drop Hauser. If he's not, then you hold on to him because he has been a top 80 player over the last couple of weeks. And surprisingly impressed, man. Like, he's just been fitting in very well. And then Al Horford, he's 55% rostered in Yahoo leagues. I think you got to hold Big Al, obviously for the stocks and what he can do for the assists. You're not counting on him to score much, but he's still a useful back-end center. So I wouldn't drop Al just yet.
Sam Hauser getting a lot of love today, but I guess when you hit 8 threes in your last 2 games, you deserve that type of love, 26 points. But yeah, I'd love to hear it from Sam Hauser. And yeah, I mean, with the scheduling, I guess that's a good call. That is a good call on both your guys' part to kind of, see what you can do up until Tuesday, given the Porzingis possible return against Cleveland's bigs. We also got some possible returns. There were some illnesses going on in Philadelphia. It's that time of year. We got snow out here in PA, gentlemen. Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, Kelly Oubre, all set to return for the Sixers. What's the fantasy impact and aspect of what you're looking at for them? Dan, I'll start with you since that's your squad.
Yeah, it sounds like they're all just kind of going through COVID-like symptoms. And so now that they're back, I think the more important part of everyone coming back is that Kelly Oubre is going to play on Wednesday. And what does that mean for their rotation? DeAnthony Melton's been playing great ever since Kelly Oubre left the lineup. Tobias Harris has kind of faded. And Kelly Oubre was a top 60 player, before he got hurt. So I'm anxious to see what that really means for their rotation. But I think, Kelly Oubre, obviously you're going to start him. Hopefully you were able to stash him in IL or scoop him up if anyone dropped him. But I'm curious to see how this affects DeAnthony Melton the most, because he was pretty bad with Kelly Oubre in the lineup. And now that he's gotten his rhythm, who's going to sacrifice? And I don't know. I've just never been on Tobias Harris. I think he started out great, but I wouldn't be surprised if he started to fade right now. And I think Kelly Oubre, he was getting 12 shot attempts a game. He gives you the steals. He was hitting threes. Do I expect him to shoot 50% all season? Absolutely not. But I don't know, man. I think he's a really important piece to this Sixers team that was playing very well with him in the lineup. So something's got to give. I think it's going to be Melton and Tobias Harris's value that's going to kind of go down as a result of him coming back.
Yeah, Harris's value has kind of declined over the past 2-3 seasons. He was a solid third man option who everyone wanted to consider as that, and now he's, I think, best as probably the 4th best scoring option for most, especially the Sixers, given Embiid and Maxey right off the bat. But you didn't shout out Patrick Beverly, man. I thought you were gonna say something about Pat Bev.
His podcast is dope, but yeah, I don't really put much fantasy stock in Pat Bev unless there's an injury, a couple injuries. I don't think he's really going to be relevant. But I just want to get your guys' take real quick before Raph answers this. Do you think the Sixers need to make a move to become a championship contender? Like, they're obviously in the playoffs, right? Like, they're a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference. But what do you think that they need to do something, and what would be that something?
Yes. I've always been a strong component of, I think the Sixers need better 3-point shooting. I feel like they have not been able to stretch the floor outside like 1 or 2 players for the past few years. And honestly, I love Embiid, man. I really do. But that team is so dependent on free throw shooting down the stretch or getting free throws to get into games that I think they just need someone else, a third scorer that can contribute on his own. He can basically score on his own. And I don't think they have that. Like, Tobias Harris isn't that. He wasn't that for the past 2.5 years for them.
He's never been that, let's be honest.
Yeah. But you're only asking, you're asking him 17, 18, 20 points a game is a great night for your third scorer. And at one point he was giving them that for a little bit, but he's lost that juice. So they're lacking the third scorer, and I think someone that's going to stretch the floor, hit threes outside of Maxey consistently. Raphael, what do you think?
I can see that. I always have to consider the potential cost because, the types of players that you guys mentioned in terms of a guy who can get his own and also space the floor, they don't come cheap, so so that
That's
can
true.
be a difficult thing to do in terms of, current players and draft capital. Because obviously DeMar DeRozan's name has come up in trade rumors to other places. I don't think he would fit in Philly because you have the spacing issue that you have now. He's a mid-range guy. He's not going to give you three-point shooting. Zach LaVine isn't going to work, I don't think, financially, just because even though he can space the floor, he's got like another 3 or 4 years left on his deal, and they still have to pay Tyrese Maxey. So I don't think this is a case where they can go and get a high-cost guy. Maybe you're trying to reshuffle some chairs on a deck, so to speak, to get yourself some better 3-and-D players, but those are also at a premium in the NBA. Everybody wants those guys. So it's like, I don't want to say that they have to stay in the position that they're in, but this may be a situation where not locking up Tyrese Maxey to a long-term deal when they had the chance could end up backfiring on them. Just because – go ahead.
I was going to say, what's the chances, because we're talking about like the 3-and-D or guys could stretch the floor. What's the chances of like Philadelphia going to get like a Buddy Hield or a Malcolm Brogdon? Like, do you think that's something that would be beneficial?
Yeah. Buddy Hield is very interesting. I think that's actually a perfect fit, to be honest.
Yeah. That's a good call there.
Hield, I was just trying to think of some like, you did like when you think of guys who are going to get traded. Yeah, and it's like, LaVine and DeRozan are getting paid. You could throw Pascal Siakam, but it's like that's a lot of money, and similar issues probably with spacing there. So just trying to think outside the box regarding the Sixers because they don't do it too well, Dan. No offense.
No, I mean I feel like there was a conversation I think around the Knicks and like how they never have the best player on the court. So it's like they need to do something to get to that next level. Like they're a playoff team, but like when are you going to be championship worthy? And I feel like that's the same problem the Sixers have. Although they have the best player on the court sometimes, but when it comes to late game situations and needing that third score, that's where they're lacking. And I feel like they're just kind of hitting this mediocrity of like, oh, cool, you can be a 50-win team and always get to the playoffs and maybe the second round, but you ain't getting past the second round. Same thing with the Knicks. Like they'll be there. They might upset somebody, but they're not winning a championship. So I kind of feel they're kind of in the same boat.
Yeah, you won't get much disagreement from me there, but at least your guys' teams are able to win 50 games. Before we move on here to our next segment, let me ask you guys this, because we spoke on Brandon Ingram earlier and how great he's been. Now that there's 4 teams left to win the in-season tournament, Ingram is plus 450 to win MVP, which is pretty significant. The only guys shorter are LeBron, Giannis, Dame, and Tyrese. If you're going to go on a limb and say who you like to win MVP for the in-season tournament, who you picking? Dan, I'll start with you.
Ooh, Giannis looked great last night, man, and what front court player is going to be able to stop him? So I feel like it's probably I got to give it to Giannis, man. I think that he's going to be unstoppable if they get past the Pacers, which they should. He's going to probably have to put up another 13 and 10 plus game. And then once you get to the finals, whether it be the Lakers or the Pelicans, I feel like he's going to be good in either of those matchups. So yeah, give me Giannis.
Yeah, I just looked to see what the over-under for the Pacers-Bucks game is, 254.5. So Giannis should probably score at least 30 points there, and they're the favorites to win in-season tournament.
That's insane. 254.
Not a bad call. Raphael, I was pretty mad last night because I was on Emmanuel Quickly's over on points, and he threw up a dud in the second half, and I'm watching Giannis like, how did I not pick Giannis? Like, what am I doing? So I do like Dan's call. Are you in the same boat or someone else?
I picked the Pelicans to win this thing on yesterday's Q&A, so I'm going to go with Brandon Ingram.
Hey, let's go.
So yeah, we'll take the plus 450. Yeah.
All right, I like that, baby. So we're spraying the board a little bit here. I'm also rock with Giannis. I'm gonna rock with Dan on this one. I'm gonna take the easy way out. But we got on the other side of this, we got Laurie Marketing, Jordan Clarkson talk, DeAndre Ayton, and Scoot Henderson But I just want to remind you guys all to find all your favorite NBC shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. It's really that easy. All right, so let's talk about the team with the second worst offensive rating in the last 5 games, but they have the third best defensive rating in that span. That's the Utah Jazz. Who would have thought? Lauri Markkanen, Jordan Clarkson, Kelly Olynyk, all these guys are dealing with injuries right now. Raphael, ball's in your court. How are we dealing with the Utah Jazz and waiver wires?
Not too good. I think Simone Fontecchio, who's been starting since Lauri Markkanen went down with his hamstring injury, 11% rostered. He's someone in deep leagues. You go ahead and stream him until Markkanen is back. You can get some 3-point production there. Averaging 2.3 3-pointers per game, 0.8 steals isn't great, but I think the biggest concern with him, he's shooting about 38% from the field over the last 2 weeks. So what you may get in some of those counting stats, you could possibly be sacrificing in terms of efficiency. Keontae George, he's been on the radar ever since he moved into the starting lineup. 45% rostered. I think that's a number that's going to increase as the season wears on. I would hop on that bandwagon now, even though his fantasy value has been low the last 2 weeks, because that's his job. He may not be the sexiest scorer in terms of efficiency, but he gets good assist numbers and he doesn't turn the ball over very much, which is a big issue for their older guards earlier in the season. So I think Keontae George will be the one I'm really in on in terms of Jazz fantasy values right now.
Dan, you were shaking your head. What's up with that?
Bro, I just don't understand how Keontae George is still only 45% rostered. Like his rostership keeps on going from 49 to 45 to 45. I'm like, what are people? Who doesn't want a point guard that can literally give you 8 assists and hasn't even figured out how to score yet? And when he does, it's going to be a wrap. So like, it's my weekly public service announcement. Go get Keontae George because you just got to get him. And he's going to be the point guard of the future, man. Like he's a really good basketball player, and I think he's only going to get better. But to Raph's point about Simone Fontecchio, I actually picked him up in a couple 12-team leagues. I think he's going to be the ad while Markkanen's out. We haven't really gotten too much of an update on that hamstring. And this guy, like beyond him not shooting good from the field, it's really the rebounds and assists that I've been interested in on him. He's averaging 10 over the last 3 games, which is awesome. Like actually over the last week. So, he's giving you rebounds. He's giving you assists. He gives you threes. Like he's a solid basketball player for streaming right now while Markkanen's out. The other player who I'm surprised is playing pretty well, and it's probably because Jordan Clarkson's been missing time, is Colin Sexton. I want to go crazy, but if you're in a 14-team league, I think he makes sense to, as a streaming option. That's probably where I would that's end of the list. Like, I don't know that I would go into Taylor Horton-Tucker. Kelly Olynyk has been ruled out for Wednesday, so I think that's an opportunity for Walker Kessler to finally potentially play better. Omar Yurtseven has been also spending time with him, but I think this is a big opportunity for Walker Kessler to kind of get back the value that many fantasy managers drafted him at. Like he should be in for a pretty big game against. I believe they're playing the Charlotte Hornets, if I'm not mistaken.
The Bulls have the Hornets tonight.
No, they got the Mavericks.
Oh, Derek Lively. Yeah, he should be. He should be all right.
Dark Horse could take advantage of that matchup.
Yeah, but either way, I think Fontecchio is the move, and then after that, just pick up Keontae George, please. Get him over 50%, y'all. I'm tired of writing about him every week from my weekly pickups.
Yeah, no, he's getting the minutes too. I mean, 31 or more minutes in the last 3 of the last 4 games. He's a little inconsistent from 3, but you said once he starts to figure out his scoring,
he's a rookie.
Yeah, 12 plus in 5 of his last 6. That's enough for the Utah Jazz right now, who need anything they can get. But they're playing at the second slowest pace in those last 5 games too. So a guy like Keontae George definitely, could help a little bit in the waiver wire. Walker Kessler should probably benefit from that pace. Let's talk about another big man, DeAndre Ayton. He's doubtful today. I don't even know how to say this name, Raphael. And you just said say the last Dua Reef. Oh, yes. Man. Names that are being dropped on this show today in the last 5 minutes. I love it. Are we on his bandwagon, Raph?
No. I said, is it? I could see someone like in an extremely deep league, making a move for him. Like if you're in like a 30 deep league, then I can see that happening. If
you're a
he's
complete degenerate, go for it.
Hey, I'm doing pretty well in my 30 deep. So yeah, that's
I'm not.
I think all right. Yeah, our producer Adam notes if you're a DFS sicko, that could possibly work too. But yeah, I know Jabari Walker's had some really good games when they've been shorthanded in the front court. So that's someone to consider in an extremely deep league as well. But yeah, you're not really going to expect to pick anyone up if Ayton doesn't play tonight. So it's worth discussing just because of how good productive he's been from a fantasy standpoint. But yeah, 11 games tonight, another 13 on Friday. There should be some better bigs on other teams that you can stream if DeAndre isn't playing.
Yeah, I think we can all agree on that one. Dan, same question, but we'll talk about kind of the Portland in general now because, Scoot Henderson, Brogdon, all back after Anthony Simons questionable for this game. So obviously we're not on the bandwagon for Reith, but are you on the bandwagon for any of these other guys on Portland? Because Scoot, not shooting great, but, he's doing okay in as far as categories, and Brogdon has looked great over the last 6 games.
Yeah, I feel like Brogdon's pretty secure right now. I'd still be hard-pressed to think that they're not going to try to trade him at some point. Scoot's being brought along pretty slowly and, wasn't playing well before his ankle injury. So now that he's coming off the bench, I think that's a good thing for him initially. But, until Anthony Simons is a full go, I'd still rock with Brogdon. He's just been a solid fantasy player anytime he's been active. So I think there's no worries there. I think you still got to be patient on Scoot. I think this is still a long-term play. I wouldn't be, I don't know, in 12-team leagues, I don't think you need to keep him on your roster. Like, I think he's going to end up on waivers at some point if he hasn't already. But Anthony Simons is going to be a huge boost for their offense. It's probably going to take out a little bit of usage from Jeremy Grant, who's been playing pretty well. I want to go back to Duop Reith for a second, only because his skill set, even if you were to stream him, he's more of like a Nas Reed type dude. So, like, even though he's 6'11", he doesn't really rebound that much. And he shoots threes. He could stretch the floor, like pretty athletic guy. But I just would temper expectations because if you're subbing in for DeAndre Ayton, you're expecting a guy that's like, oh, can you give me 10 rebounds? Can you give me a couple blocks? That's not really his game. But I would be interested about Jabari Walker, though. I think that's a good name that you brought up there, Raph. He's a guy that I think is kind of underrated and they want to see more of. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was the one that was really to be that front court, rim protecting, rim rebounder type guy. So DFS streaming, I'd actually look at Jabari Walker there. But as in terms of like the backcourt, Anthony Simons will probably need a little bit of ramp up time. He hasn't played in a while, so get him in your lineups. But I think it's going to take probably about a few games for him to get back into his rhythm, and then Scoot is probably going to be expendable at that point, depending on what their rotation and how that's going to look like.
Raphael, go ahead.
Let me toss in one more name. Grant's going to be out tonight. He's in concussion protocol. Maybe Matisse Thybulle gets on the radar here. It's only 9% rostered. You're banking on the defensive stats more than anything. But I don't know. He could be someone, if you're in need of steals or blocks, increased playing time, someone to check out there in deep leagues, I think.
Yeah, Matisse Thybulle, because definitely he's an all-around player. Won't drop you 10 points or anything, but he might get you 10 combined points, rebounds, and assists in a night.
Yeah,
Raphael, something Dan said. I wanted to ask you about Scoot Henderson, who'll likely hit the waiver wire. When do you anticipate that? Like, would you be dropping him now if you had him? Would you hold on to him for 3 more weeks, then drop him? What's your approach with Scoot?
I have him rostered right now, and I'm playing the long game. Like Dan said. I think if you're in a situation where you need consistent production and there's someone on the wire that you can pick up to get that, then you go ahead and do it. But I think if you're in a position where you don't exactly need that, I would hold on to him, because once February hits and in Portland, if they're playing at the level that we all expect them to, Scoot's going to be playing about 30 minutes a night minimum. So I think if you can afford to wait that long, I would hold on to him, even though it doesn't look too good. Outside top 450 and 9-cat, that's bad. He did miss time with the injury, but I think if you can afford to wait, I would consider holding on to him. At least I am.
Yeah, I mean, he's young. He's figuring it out. 9.6 points per game since his return. 17 of 50 from the field. That's 34%, and hitting 35% from 3 too. So not absolutely terrible numbers for a rookie, but, something he'll improve on for sure as the season goes on. So I agree. I'd hold on to him. We'll mention 3 more guys before we start talking about some buy high, sell low, or I said that backwards, right, guys? Yeah, I said that backwards, but you all know what I meant. It's about the time of the show where Raphielle starts getting angry.
Raph's giving you the signal.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's almost the time of the show where he starts getting angry, so we got to start speeding it up. Chris Paul, Andrew Wiggins. Let's talk about these guys. Wiggins popped off. 29 points, 10 rebounds versus the Kings, had 33 combined points in 3 games before that, Raphielle. And Chris Paul, not really scoring, but he got 16 assists in his last 2 healthy games. What's your opinions on the 2?
I think this may be the point where people start considering buying low on Andrew Wiggins. Really poor start to the season. I would wait. I want to see how he performs on Wednesday if he's ultimately cleared to play. See how that index finger injury is impacting his shooting. I just think it stinks if you're all in on Moses Moody. Like, he was a guy that was playing well when those guys were down injured. Now that they're back, I'm not believing a word that Steve Kerr says about him needing to stay in the rotation, because he said that about Brandon Podziemski earlier this season too. Then he racked up a bunch of DNP CDs. So I think it's quite clear that those 2 guys need to play more, but he doesn't seem willing to take anything away from the veterans right now, which is good for them. But, if you're hoping for those young guys to break out, it's kind of hard to do so when the minutes are inconsistent.
Yeah, no, totally agree there. And we know Steve Kerr definitely loves his veterans, but I agree. I've been wanting to see more Moses Moody. I think that he's an awesome guy. Even at Arkansas, he was a terrific talent, and he plays very well in up-tempo styles. What's your opinion, Dan, on this? Are you in the buy low category with Wiggins? Or are you over this? Because I know we've been talking about him for a month straight.
Yeah, I guess in theory he is a buy low just for how bad he is right now. I guess my question would be like, what would be a realistic target for him? Like, what would you trade to acquire Andrew Wiggins? But I am disappointed. I would share Raph's opinion on, I think it's an opportunity for where Moses Moody totally understood the assignment, played well, coming off 21 points, a season high in his last game, and to just be benched now probably because Chris Paul's back and Andrew Wiggins is back. I would take a wait and see approach though. Like, I don't know that I'm ready to anoint Wiggins of, like he's back, the guy that he was like last year, or I should say a year and a half ago. Klay Thompson, same thing. Like, I'm not ready to say like, oh, let's go buy low on these guys. But where you drafted them, it's a reasonable argument to say that they're both buy lows. I just don't know that I'm ready to, like, I don't know the way that they're playing, even if they hit their stride, where that's going to help my team that much because they've been so inconsistent. So yeah, I'm going to play the wait and see game on that one.
I love watching the Warriors, but I also love watching the Warriors lose, man. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is when you can make everyone just, the price is always so high on the Warriors. So, I'm tired of, Andrew Wiggins and the Chris Paul and the Klay Thompson. Like, it is what it is. These guys are older now and the team is declining. Short and sweet. I'm going to say it like that. Bojan Bogdanovic returned to Detroit, though. That might be bigger news in my book. Because he was a pretty good pickup. You got him 22 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists in 27 minutes, 7 of 15 from the floor. They did lose to the Cavs, but 3 guys had really good games with him back. Our guy, Cade Cunningham, almost had a triple-double. Jalen Duren had himself a double-double with 3 blocks. And Isaiah Stewart, 11 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. Pretty impressive all-around effort from Detroit. Raphielle, what did you like about his return, and what's the impact for you moving forward?
He gives them spacing. Much needed spacing. Obviously, it didn't impact the win column for them, but
nothing could do that right now for Detroit.
Yeah, 17 losses in a row. Yeah, that's huge. I think if you're an All-Star Thompson manager, which I am, it was disappointing. I think he played about 14 minutes. I don't know what's going on with that rotation. It just feels like they're searching for answers, which you understand given how badly the team has played. But Alsar Thompson, Marvin Bagley III, I think Alsar you hold on to for that long-term play, like we mentioned with Scoot, but he's been considerably better than Scoot. Bagley, I don't think there's any reason to have him rostered at this point. I think he was at down like 6% as it was. So it's like that 6% either checked out or they're just asleep at the wheel because you can't have him. You can't have him at this point. Bogdanovich is back.
Yeah.
Joe Harris is getting close to a return. So there's another potential floor spacer. Yeah. So I think Alsar and Marvin Bagley have been impacted the most, but Cade in a positive sense being impacted too, because now he's got room to maneuver a bit. So I'd say those three personally for me.
I was definitely not going to bring up the Arsar Thompson minutes because, I didn't want to disappoint you guys, definitely disappoint all
that one
aspects.
hurt.
Yeah, but I have a prediction that I'm going to save till after Dan goes regarding the Detroit Pistons. But Dan, what did you make of them in general? And were you excited about anything with the Detroit Pistons? We're going to talk about Jaden Ivey once again.
Yeah, man. I'm just concerned about all the guards. Like Killian Hayes got 33 minutes. Asar Thompson, it sucks to have to hold because like Scoot Henderson's that's like a real choice of like, all right, well, I don't really need him right now. Like Asar Thompson was like a key figure on a lot of people's teams, right? Like he was giving you 9 rebounds, 9.5 rebounds, like multiple stocks, like over 3. And for him to just sit on the bench now, man, there's going to be some tough decisions to be made because I don't know that anyone can figure out what Monty Williams is doing right now. And having Bojan Bogdanović back, like I thought that would actually hurt Isaiah Stewart the most, but he actually had a decent game. But I'm also going to say, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Isaiah Stewart kind of faded off and he ends up being a waiver guy very soon because they have this, as Raph stated, they have a spacing problem and Bojan Bogdanović solves that problem. And I just don't know. It's going to be good for Cade. It's going to be good for Duren. Everybody else to me is just like, I don't know what to expect right now. And that's all on Monty and trying to figure out what consistency he wants out of this unit. And the fact that they keep losing, I don't know, like, what else can you do? Like, so, yeah, I'm frustrated as an Asar Thompson truther myself. I don't care about Killian Hayes, but, his rostership is up 6% since last week. He's playing well and he's getting minutes. I don't know. I've just never been in on Killian Hayes. So, like, I get it if you want to stream him, but I would just be cautious of anybody in that backcourt because Monty Williams could start Jaden Ivey tomorrow. He could decide to throw Marcus Sasser back out there. Who the hell knows?
I was going to say Jaden Ivey might end up being a captain by the end of the year because Monty's just picking and choosing. He don't know what he's doing. He's like, all right. But, I mean, with that line.
Just last week, he was good. Like, Jaden Ivey was a dude that you could stream. And now that Bojan's back, like, I'd be curious. So I ask you guys, do you think that now that the Detroit Pistons are clearly tanking beyond belief, is Bojan going to get heavy minutes because they're going to try to trade him, or is he actually a piece that they can hold on to as like the veteran in the locker room? Because they're not going to have many left. Like Joe Harris isn't going to be there very long. Like he's another guy that I could see like, hey, ship him out to a contender, right? So
So my prediction I was going to make here was going to say either Joe Harris or Marvin Bagley is going to be in Chicago by the end of the year. Absolutely see one of those two getting traded and being on a team like that where they don't want to be, but they'll get the minutes to get the money. So, Raphael, your opinion?
I don't know if they're tanking. They just stink. Like that. Like I don't know how.
Unintentionally tanking.
I don't really know how else to say it. Like, oh God, man! Let's just go to the promo, man.
Let's go to the promo, man. Hey, Raphael said it best. Let's go to the promo, man. This Sunday night, it's a huge matchup between MVP candidates and Super Bowl contenders, guys. It's Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. They traveled to Dallas to take on Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. It's going to be a great game, NFC East. I like the Cowboys. I mean, in real life, I don't like the Cowboys, but I think the Cowboys can win. Just want to throw it out there. Buy low, sell high. Got that, Raphael. All right. A couple guys we're talking about. We talked about Scoot Henderson earlier, so I feel like we don't have to cover him for time purposes. Josh Giddey. Let's start there, Raphael. What do you think about him? Because if you have him, I say trade him now.
Yeah. Off-court issues aside, he hasn't performed well between the lines. Outside the top 209 cat, ADP is 60. You're expecting a hell of a lot more than this. And I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the continued emergence of Jalen Williams, and now they have a center who's an offensive threat in Chet Holmgren. Giddey's in a tough spot. So I think if you have him rostered, I'm trying to sell him at all costs. But I don't know what type of value you're going to be able to get for him in return on the trade market, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, you got to find that one person in your league, that you can always take advantage of. But yeah, you got to get rid of him at some type, of way.
Vaughn sitting here scrolling, looking for the bum in the league.
Yeah, my brother taught me that one. All right, Dan. So are you in the same boat with Josh Giddey? And then give me your opinion on Herb Jones, whether you're going to buy low or sell high on him.
So yeah, I mean, I have Josh Giddey, and it's been ugly, man. He's outside the top 200. His volume's down. Offensive, like from a shooting perspective, his assists are down, rebounding, everything is down. He's just having a horrible year, and I don't know if it's the off the court stuff going on that's kind of affecting his play or not. But I think that I don't know. Would you take Giddey for Andrew Wiggins? Like, is that a comparable
Wiggins is playing
trade value at this point? Because they do different things. Like, I mean, with Giddey, you were waiting on his assists and his rebounds, but like his assists are at 4 a game. He gets no stocks, and his free throw percentage usually sucks. And he's shooting 42% from the field, where last year he was like near 49-50. He's pretty much. I mean, he's not that much worse than Andrew Wiggins. So I don't know. It's probably a trash for trash trade, but I just don't know where you get that much value for Josh Giddey at this point. Like I think everybody knows, and I don't think anyone really wants to touch him with the off the court stuff going on, even though it looks like I don't know. It just seems like he's going to play. So,
for now, at least.
Yeah. I mean, there hasn't been anything to indicate otherwise. Like, it seems like everybody knows. So I don't know. Situation that we'll have to probably wait and see on. But Herb Jones, I'm going to hold on to him for now, just for the defensive stocks, and what he's doing offensively, I think, is just a bonus. So, like, I don't really know that I want to get rid of Herb Jones unless you want to read through the tea leaves and eventually Trey Murphy replaces him in the starting lineup. That's the only thing that I would probably be concerned about. But right now, it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I like Herb Jones long term. I think I love what Raphielle was saying about him defensively, because I'm in the same boat. At Alabama, he was an absolute monster. What's your opinion on him, Raphielle? Buy low, sell high, and then get into another name that you might be buying low or selling high on.
Yeah, I would only sell Herb if I were to be offered someone who's going to give me consistent, like, third round value. That's it. Like, anything less than that, I'm keeping him, because, as Dan mentioned, the defensive production is just too good, especially in category leagues. There's no way I'm going to give up a player like that. The offense has improved. Like I was saying earlier, even if he gets moved to the bench, he's going to play plenty. He's just too good of a player to fall out of the rotation completely. So, yeah, I'm keeping him. I think another interesting name would be Scottie Barnes. The top 10 value in 9-cat right now. I think people are expecting top 50 value. He's been far better than that. It's clear that he's viewed as the franchise building block in Toronto. But Siakam and OG Anunoby said to be free agents this summer. That makes sense. I just don't know if I can see him producing at the level that he's been producing at for the entire season, especially when you look at the improved shooting. Is that real compared to his first 2 seasons, or is it kind of a mirage? I think I would try to sell high with Scottie Barnes, to be honest with you. That may be a shocking decision to some, but I think I would try to move him, see if I can get good value in return.
Yeah, I mean, he's been impressive. Almost 20 points, 9 rebounds, 5.5 assists. He's doing everything you want. But hey, you question what the state of Toronto is actually going to be in, too, by the end of the season. Like, he may not play a full season because, they're going to be far out of the playoff positioning. Dan, what's your opinion on Scottie Barnes? I'd like to point out that they got him with the 4th overall pick in 2021. 4th overall pick in 2020 was a guy, Patrick Williams. Scottie Barnes has panned out far better than my guy, the Paul.
Yeah, Pat Williams is actually streamable, I think, with Zach LaVine out. And he's been actually getting a lot of stocks lately, so I'm not like totally off Pat Williams, but this is a temporary situation here. Like, you don't throw all your eggs into into Pat Williams here. But I agree, like just off sheer ADP, obviously Scottie Barnes is playing well above expectation, so he's a sell high. That being said, the defensive stats that he's doing, this is like the stock day. He's getting 3 stocks, man. Like I was expecting 5 assists, that was there. 9 rebounds, probably wasn't expecting that. And 20 points per game, I think that's a realistic leap in terms of a breakout. But the stocks, though, I didn't see that. And his percentages aren't that great. So like I think that there's certainly a case to be made where you can get some really good value for Scottie Barnes right now. Like just looking down the list, like would you take Evan Mobley for Scottie Barnes? Would you take DeJounte Murray, Mikal Bridges? Like all of these guys rank below him. And I think that that's all second round value that I expected to be way better than him anyway. Yeah. So if anyone's having a down week, that's like second, third round value. I think that's where you trade Scottie Barnes and try to get somebody that's like, you caught him on a bad week slipping and then you're getting, top 20 potential. Cause I don't think Scottie's going to hold. He's definitely not going to hold first round value, but he could be second, third round. Like I think that that's certainly fair, but I just think that this is the time to probably sell him at 10.
Yeah, I'm not going to agree with you guys. I'm going to have to re-watch this episode back because when you name the 3 guys that were worth trading for, I'm pretty sure me and Raphael's head moved in different directions for all 3 names. We would never get along in a trade, Raphael and I. But of course, like you guys said, I'm looking for my mark, and you two, you ain't it. All right, it's Christmas season, and unless you're my family, you will be a mark. But this holiday season, everyone, get the fantasy fan in your life, an exclusive Rotoworld Draft Guide bundle featuring expert analytics, player insights, and season-long tools. You get all 3 of the draft guides for one low price. You go to NBCSports.com/holiday bundle and use code HOLIDAY23 at checkout. You receive 25% off and a $10 Fanatics gift card. Make sure you get that. I'll probably get that from my boy. I'm surprised for his birthday, actually. He needs some help in fantasy football next year because I'm spanking him. All right. Week 7 schedule, gentlemen. We got 22 teams playing on Wednesday and Friday. We got some games on Thursday as well we covered. Dan, we'll kick it off. What are you looking at as far as scheduling this week?
Well, everyone still plays 2 games, so like there's not really any scheduling advantages this week. It's really about what we talked about earlier and making sure that you can try to get a couple extra games in there, maybe a couple streams on Thursday, just to get a couple, just to get a boost or 2 in a couple stat areas where you're looking or deficient. Because Friday has such a big slate of 13 games, you're gonna have to play everybody, and there's no games on Saturday that count to fantasy. So you're really going to be looking. I guess I would say for scheduling purposes, if you're not able to stream on Thursday, start looking to week 8 and seeing if there's anyone on waivers that maybe someone dropped for whatever reason. Try to scoop them up because I think that you have being that we don't have games on Saturday or Sunday, you're probably not going to use all your waiver ads this week. So you might as well prepare for next week.
Yeah, very odd. No weekend games here, no back-to-backs, no games on Sunday. It's going to be strictly football weekend for your boy here. But we got 13 games on Monday to open week 8. So I like that note that you point out too. Get a head start on the following week. Raphael, what are you looking at for scheduling this week and weekend?
I think Dan pretty much hit on it. If anything, for Wednesday and Friday, you may be targeting particular matchups for potential waiver ads. One guy I really like, regardless of the schedule, would be Jaime Jaquez in Miami. 56% rostered. I think he's going to have staying power throughout the season. As many expected during the pre-draft process, he's been ready to contribute from day one. An older player. I think Miami got one of the steals of the draft by selecting him 18th overall. And we've seen unpredictable things happen, like Jimmy Butler. Tyler Hero's still out in terms of injuries. Bam Adebayo is going to be out on Wednesday. So maybe Orlando Robinson for tonight's slate, if you're looking in really deep leagues. But Jaime Jaquez is someone I think if you picked him up this week, you can probably hold on to him throughout the duration of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got guys like Kyle Lowry, too, who are aging and going to miss games as well. And he can step in. He can handle the rock, play in the post, play on the wing. I do think he's one of the steals as well. Dan, anything else you want to hit on?
Yeah, just want to touch on that for a second. So Tyler Hero looks like he's going to be returning next week. It should be.
Okay.
I think it's all by all indications. I think Raph is right in terms of staying power. So it's really a choice between Duncan Robinson and Jaime Jaquez. And I think Jaime Jaquez fits a little bit better. Like Duncan Robinson's been solid, like been playing great, but I think he just understands his role and he stepped up. DFS stream for tonight, Caleb Martin, I think is actually pretty interesting. He's been playing very well. And he's also getting the minutes now too. He's playing over 30 plus in his last two. He looks like the guy that was playing in the playoffs last year. So if you need threes, some stocks, low end rebounds, like I think he could be a good look for a possible streaming option. But yeah, I think I'm going to probably write an article tomorrow about Jaime Jaquez just because he's going to be impacted by the Tyler Hero return. But I think that he will maintain, at least 6th, 7th man in this rotation. And he's already shown that he can be productive in like 20, 25 minutes. And he's efficient. He's just like he's a hooper, man. Like the skill set that he has, the footwork, like he does everything you want to see from a basketball perspective. And that also is going to translate to fantasy. So he just passes the eye test for me for someone that's going to be a good fantasy player. So I'm with that.
Yeah, no, I love all those bring ups there. Caleb Martin, especially 14 plus points in 4 straight games. He's been really good for Miami. A lot of role players always stepping up for the Heat in general. Raphielle, let you close it out. Anything else you want to hit on, or are we done? You're starting to get that look in your eye, man.
No, I was just checking the injury report. Jalen Smith in Indiana is going to be out tomorrow and possibly Saturday if they play then. Obviously, Saturday means nothing from a fantasy standpoint. It looks like it's a knee issue. They tried to play it off as a heel injury before, but if you watched it happen in live time, you're probably shocked to know that he's doing some light running because it looked like a pretty bad hyperextension when it happened. So, him being able to do some light running now is a good sign for them. Won't impact fantasy too much just because he's a backup center, but maybe Obi Toppin gets a few minutes at center instead of just power forward as part of a smaller lineup. I don't know. Or Isaiah Jackson, but you're not really going to put your eggs in that basket, so to speak. So, close out with that.
Yeah, one go back there. Just want to add real quick. The schedule for next week, you can drop Orlando Magic players after Monday because they don't play again until Friday. And they play because of that homestand thing, they're going to play Boston twice. I don't like that matchup for people like, Mo Wagner. Cole Anthony's probably still good. It's really probably just Mo Wagner. He's probably a drop at this point, but he's been playing really well. And Goga Batadze, I'd probably drop him too because they played the Boston Celtics on Friday and Sunday.
Orlando's been a bad matchup for them though.
They have been. That's true. That's true. That's what I'm saying. Like Boston's going to be coming with that smoke. They know what it is. They're not going to let it happen on their home floor twice. So, I'd also add real quick, the Sixers have a really good schedule, and I wouldn't be surprised if Joel Embiid skips a game. They play Detroit on Friday and Charlotte on Saturday on a back-to-back. And they also play Detroit on Wednesday, and they play Washington on Monday.
Oh my God. Joel Embiid scoring 40 or sitting on the couch.
You're right.
Tyrese
exactly.
is going to cook.
Yeah.
All right. Make sure he's in your lineups for sure. DFS lineups.
Best thing about the last 30 seconds of the show is Dan and Raphielle just did some of my work for me next week. I know exactly what I'm looking for in circling. So thank you, gentlemen. I did want to ask you guys one question here for fun before we get out of here. So we got the Steelers game on Thursday, right? Steelers Patriots, lowest total since 2004, 30 points projected. Army and Navy plays football. That total's 27.5. What game has more points? Steelers and Pats or Army versus Navy?
Is Army still running do they run like a wishbone or something?
They all, they're
still running the high school offense, the 1930s offense. Yeah, of course.
Off of that, I'll give my faith in Mitch Trubisky that he can put up a couple points. I'm gonna go with the Steelers Patriots.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that as well, just because the short week can lead to people who are looking incompetent on Sunday suddenly looking somewhat competent on Thursday, or vice versa, where good players just absolutely stink with the shortened rest. So I think I'm going to go with the Steelers Patriots over. But I'm more interested in Army Navy, to be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be at the game thinking about Army Navy. I'll be at the Steelers thinking about Army Navy because that's where I'll be making more money. But I'm with you guys. Army Navy, they hate each other. They're gonna duke it out and go under there. Let's see what happens. But thank you guys for giving me that. I'm gonna have some fun at the game tomorrow. And if TJ Watt gets 3 sacks, I might rip my pants flexing, gentlemen, just so you know. But this was the Rotoworld Basketball Show. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. If you're getting the help you need from Dan Titus and Raphielle Johnson, don't consider me when dropping likes or subscribing. Yahoo Sports for Dan, NBC Sports for Raphielle, and thank you to Adam, our producer, for holding us down as always. Enjoy the full hoop slate tonight, everyone. In-season tournament semifinals tomorrow. We'll see you next week.